Okay.
And we're back, and thank you to all of you that will come and join us back again on this live spiritual podcast that we're doing of the theme of Easter, since Nick, we were going to do the theme on him next time he shows up because his story is very fascinating, and Samantha wanted to meet him. So sorry, Sam. You even made that drive for him. That's why we had to get him into the room.
Yeah, it's great to be here though, and like to talk to you all. Yeah, that's awesome. So what have we? I mean, I've completely missed it. I've had no reception. I've had to drive. I've just been driving like a manic. The dog's been going like, "Oh my God, mummy, what are you doing? You think you're like Nigel Mansell or something?" And I was like, I need to get some reception. I'm not really sure what you talked about. I mean, it's a good theme seeing as it's Easter tomorrow. But I mean, have you talked about the religious connotations or what?
Well, honestly, we could leave it up to you because we dive through a few different streams of it, but we can bring it back to what you, because we got to how it's mainly about the resurrection energy, and that is the ultimate point. And all these different religions and techniques are all just for resurrection. So why don't you dive in and tell people what your thoughts are on Easter and that resurrection energy?
I mean, to be honest, I was raised Catholic, so I suppose I do have a bit of a Catholic influence on that. Obviously, as I've gone on my own spiritual journey, what I probably would say is that it's kind of a parable, in my opinion, for death and rebirth cycles, essentially. And then, because we're constantly in these cycles, whether we're aware of it or not, through like our healing, trauma release, letting go of bits of our ego. And I really think it's kind of like symbolic of that. But taking it a step further, my own kind of interpretations of that would be that Christ achieved the rainbow light body. I mean, it's called lots of different names in lots of different traditions, but essentially it's activating that light body, cultivating it, and being able to leave your body and then come back. And that's kind of my thoughts on that. Sorry, the seagulls. So I don't know if anybody else has got any thoughts on that.
Well, Diana's frozen, so I'm just going to say yes. I agree with you. I think that's a beautiful way to put it. Yeah, and trust you to go someplace we hadn't even gone yet. Yay, Sam! There, I think Diana's back now.
You muted.
I can't hear you, Diana. Yeah, we can't hear you.
My kids are being noisy, so I keep having to mute. But I like the birth and the re-death, and we kind of ended up touching on that without putting the direct correlation there, because Kirsten mentioned about things dying away, and it was like, or it's like realizing they've died, and like the growing, and then here you jump on with like the next phase. So I love the idea growth there. It's beautiful, and this is why this collective is such a fantastic and wonderful experience, to get to have that growing and growing and growing in that little think tank of spirituality. And we build all these concepts so much. And one of the other things I don't know if I'm going in order here. I know, Samantha, one of the other things we asked is if you were to help someone rebirth the self and have that resurrection, what is something that your specific ritual would be? Like I said, salt baths, and Kirsten had an awesome arm move thing, like a physical thing. And what would yours be?
But what, to facilitate a death rebirth cycle?
Yes.
Oh, that is very deep. I mean, I'd obviously go into the trauma aspect. So I've had a recent experience. Essentially, it's karma release. Because my own understanding, and again, this isn't from any texts or anything, this is from my own personal experience, which is kind of where I'm coming from a lot of the time. A bit like you, I have these experiences and I'm like, oh, what is that? I'd best go away and research it and see if anybody else has had something similar, or if it says something in some esoteric text. But I think in my own kind of journey, because I've done a lot of this, I think it's that very scorpionic energy, isn't it, as well, like death rebirth. It's like going into the self. First of all, I think you need some kind of intention to do it properly. If you're actually doing it as a practice, it's the shadow work, isn't it? So I would say it's becoming aware of your patterns, your trauma, and finding ways to deal with that, which is it's going to look different for everybody. I mean, my personal thing was meditation and shamanic journeying, which has been really helpful for me. And what that essentially does is you're going into yourself, and there's lots of different tips and techniques and things that you can do for the journeying, because there's like lower world journeying and upper world journeying, which is for another day. But yeah, so when I've kind of gone into that, what you're essentially doing is soul retrieval, because every time you have a trauma, what essentially happens is like a significant trauma. What's that?
You're spot on. We said that we said that receiving soul shards, the rebirth. It's a rebirthing of the self. Back, all the soul shards we always hear about, and how this was a prime time for it. So I just love that. Yeah, you tapped on that too. Exactly.
Yeah. So what's happening is when you have a trauma, we lose bits of ourselves all the time. We can have like a really bad day and somebody could like rear end us in the car, and it's like, but then it comes back because your body's safe again. And essentially what you're doing is, when you're doing healing work, is you're going into your body, you're witnessing it, and you're essentially letting go of the emotional attachment to it. Just by witnessing it, you're allowing it to move through you, and you're in essence making your body safe again. Now, you can lose bits of your soul that get stuck in like a specific time, and you can actually go back into past lives. And what tends to happen is, and from my own experience, I found this, it's like you can have an original trauma, which is almost like it causes a karmic blueprint in your own base blueprint. That's the only way I can kind of describe it. And it will create and it will pull circumstances and situations into your life that will bring this up time and time and again until you clear it, essentially. So you've basically programmed your reality with a repeating fractal pattern of this particular trauma, and it will manifest in lots of different ways. And it's almost like little pearls on a necklace, and you've got your original bit at the front, and then little ones will all like kind of add on. And when you go back to the original trauma and you release that trauma and you reintegrate that piece of your soul, you're becoming whole, you're becoming more balanced. And that is the death rebirth cycle there, because you're actually saying, hey, I'm witnessing what's happened, I'm letting go of that old part of me, I'm letting it go, I'm grieving it, I'm going to go through whatever process, because obviously once you've integrated, there's the obviously once you've obviously brought it back, there's the integration that goes along with that as well, which is really important. And this is where like the work really becomes apparent, because you've got to sit with yourself, you've got to sit with your patterns, you've got to feel it emotionally and energetically as well. And essentially what that is doing, it's recalibrating your ego, for one, it's recalibrating your body, and it's physically changing your DNA. And the more of yourself that you bring back, the more light you are infusing into your body. And this is what we talk about, becoming more crystalline, essentially. So yeah, that's probably my own process. So it's going back, looking at your trauma, integrating the bits of us, becoming safe and whole. And that's probably how I would look at that. But we do it on a smaller scale all the time. Like we can have small like episodes in our lives that happen, or we can have small traumas where we're kind of like jarred out of our ordinary reality. You know, these things can just like, we can have a job loss, we can have the loss of a partner, we can have, you know, the death of somebody, we can have all these things that happen. And basically what it's doing is pulling us out of the sleep state, because we kind of sometimes just go along, don't we? We're in this kind of pattern program, and we're like, this is what we're doing. We get up every morning, we brush our teeth, we have our breakfast, we go to work, and it's like rinse and repeat. And sometimes it's just comfortable, isn't it? And we do the same thing over and over again. And the mini death rebirth cycles, and sometimes it can be quite major, is when we have these catastrophic events, really, or even these small events, just like, we've lost a job, and we have to recalibrate who we are. We think, all right, we were doing this for so long, we've just got stuck in a rut. Who are we really? And it's peeling back those layers of self to really get to the core essence of who we are, you know?
Yeah, 100%. That was perfect information. And I'll let Kirsten go ahead and respond.
I think that was perfect. And I think it really points out the whole the whole symbology of that story that we have about Christ, you go through the death first. And so really, when you want to resurrect something, something does have to die. And just like, when you clean out your garden place, so you bring it back, to gardening, the first thing you do is you don't plant everything. You drag out all of the old dead stuff. And it's the same thing when you're rebirthing yourself. You have to find all of those places where you have not processed that trauma, you have not released it, let it go, thrown it away. And so I think a lot of times, and I was thinking for me, a lot of times when I go through these rebirths, the first thing that happens is I have a complete meltdown. And that looks different in different ways. I mean, you may have a meltdown because, like Sam was saying, something goes wrong in your life. You lose a partner, you lose a job, you lose whatever. But sometimes it's more of an internal, like, oh my gosh, this part of myself, this trauma that I experienced is still clinging to my aura. It's still clinging to me. It's still clinging to my DNA. And so a lot of times what you have to process may not even be something that happened in the outer world. When you get going on your shadow work, you'll have things come up and it's just like, oh, I have this really heavy energy at my heart space. What is this? And of course, I always go for yoga, but yoga helps you transmute that too, because you have, a lot of times you're holding these things right in your body, in your chakras, in your auric field. And so you have to release that stuff and let it go. And sometimes what that looks like for me, a lot of times, is just crying. That's been a lot of my shadow work, is just finding that grief. And so even if you're experiencing grief, it's really good to recognize, because grief can be really difficult. Obviously, we all know that. But when you're grieving, you're actually making space for your new life to come through. And so, yeah, a lot of times that does look like, everything falls apart and I'm really sad and I feel terrible. But it's releasing that, it's letting go of all that so that you have space for the new seeds that you've planted to bloom. Yeah.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That was amazing. Let's just go into the next thing that we discussed, because I want to hear Sam's feedback on this now too, because that was perfect. Sam, you like you were listening to us. Swear to God, that was perfect. The next thing was the God spark within. So the heart spark, I know heart chakra, but like it's going so much deeper than that, we know now. And that is the 0 point energy zone as we start to learn to talk in frequency. So, and then some people have gods, they give it the I am.
We lost you, Diana.
You froze, my love.
We lost you.
Oh,
And we're back. I don't know how much you guys heard, but what does the 0 point energy space feel like to you? So we can help build people's language on it. Long story short.
Oh, these are great questions. I'm loving these today. It's really touching on the deep esoteric, isn't it? Yeah. So you're right. The heart space. So the heart space, because I've done a lot of work with that, like meditation. My meditation teacher was big on that. And what the 0 point, in my own opinion, is, and from what I've learned and experienced, is like it's the voided space. So if you think of a lemniscat, like the figure of 8, and it's a central point between the figure of 8, it's the perfect balance. It's so when you breathe in and you hold your breath, essentially, because you're in the middle, you're out, and that's the lemniscat. And when you do that in the heart space, so there's a meditation you can actually do where you breathe into the heart, doing a bit of pranayama, and you go through the actual heart chakra. So your heart chakra, it's vertical. So you breathe through it, one loop, and in the middle, that is the 0 point, and then you breathe back through it. And you do it with the breath in and out. And what that will do is bring you back to center. And then you can actually go into that with your mind. I mean, you do it with your will and your imagination to start with, and you would feel into that, and that will take you into it's like a perfect stillness, into the voided space, essentially. So that's kind of how I would describe that. I don't know if that made sense.
Oh, 1000%. And I don't even know if I'd realized the in breath, like the in breath, and like, because I hold my breath and I feel like I didn't put two and two together, because yeah, they are the same space. Something about it activates it. So that's wonderful.
Yeah. That was a great question. I love that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you were talking about the I am presence, isn't it? Because that's what it is. You're going back to like the original energy, because that's what that's what the void, it's like the potential of creation. It's not birthed yet, and that's why we can take that energy. And this is why humans are so amazing, because they have the ability to bring that energy into fruition, give it direction and focus with our conscious attention, and birth things into reality. That is why we are so amazing.
Yes. Perfect. That could be,
Yes.
that's a commercial trailer right there. That was beautiful. That was spot on. And that pretty much, that was like, we gave you the speed round of what we were just doing there for the last 40 minutes. So I want to give David a chance to talk and start us off on our next round of discussion, because David, I want to hear, what does Saint Germain have to say about the I am space? And for those that don't know, Saint Germain, it's like a church that exists upon the I am, but I'll let David describe it fuller of what they talk about the I am.
Well, to me, Saint Germain's not a church. Like, there may be one, but to me, Saint Germain's a person. He's an ascended master, and he's kind of like my Jedi master. I mean, like in a very real sense, you know, like how Luke has Master Obi-Wan. He's not even alive, but he still shows up and like tells him what he needs, teaches him what he needs to know, and it's kind of like that. And so it's been fascinating and amazing and humbling to be taught by one of the greatest teachers that's ever existed. I mean, it's like, what? Okay, I don't know how I got here, but it's pretty awesome. And what he has to say about the I am presence is so much. And I mean, there's no way I could tell it all, but I can talk about a few things, and I'll tell you this. There's a great book, The I Am Discourses. You can get it on hardback on Amazon for, $20 to $30. I mean, it's a little bit, because it's not really, it's not made by like a big publishing company, because these teachings, it's actually forbidden for them to earn a profit. They can't be sold for profit. Okay, they can only be given away at cost, things like that. So, but you don't even have to buy the book. If you go on YouTube and just look up the I Am Discourses, there are several very well done audio readings of the book, and I highly recommend anybody just find it and just listen to a little bit every day. Oh, it'll change your life for sure. And so, Saint Germain says that I am are the two most powerful words that any being can think or speak, because everything that follows those words is defining what you will or won't be. So every word that you choose to speak or embody with this sense of I am, sense of identity, you need to be so careful about how you project that energy. Definitely don't be going around saying, "Oh, I'm sick, I'm poor, I'm never going to achieve my dreams." Definitely don't say that. I'll never find the love of my life. Things like that. You're cursing yourself. You're speaking it into reality. And if you think that's BS, I mean, it isn't. I mean, if you just think about it for a little bit, it makes sense. Okay, what you focus your attention on is where you're going to end up, and that's a fact. So if you're going around saying, "Oh, I feel terrible, I'm sick, I'm poor, I'm lonely," you are at least somewhat responsible for that, and that's not look, this is big boy talk, right? Like, I'm not saying that people who are experiencing pain and trauma, that they caused it. That's not what that means. This is grown-up talk, okay? And grown-up talk is everyone contributes energy to the situations that they experience. It doesn't mean you caused it. It means you take a look at that situation and you think, how did my energy, like, what could I have done differently in that situation so that the energy was better? That is a way to look at, like, your past transgressions, or your past bad situations, times where you were hurt, and say, well, how did I contribute to that? What could I have done better? And that's how you grow and become stronger from those situations. I'm sorry, that's a little bit of a tangent.
No, that's perfect. I completely agree. And I would actually say, no, it is you 100% doing it. Like at a top level, 100% it's all you, only you, because there is only you. So it has to be you.
Exactly.
It all circles back. And if people want to believe otherwise, then they're really not in the same framework of building of existence. Which brings me to my next question. And it's a big one. And feel free to take the time you need to pull it all out. Because as we talk rebirth and as we talk energy of 2025, where do we go from here to rebirth the whole world? What should we start implementing first? Like, we've talked spiritual centers. We've talked, like, I became a minister because I felt teaching people about God was first and foremost. Energy healings, the way government should look. If you were king of the world and you were given the platform with like 10 minutes to just shoot your plan, what would you announce to the audience? And I'll start with Samantha with the floor here. What do you think, Samantha, would be that way to go? The next 5-year plan?
That's such a great question. Yeah. I mean, it's so nuanced, isn't it? I mean, if I was going to be like the world dictator and say this is what it's going to look like, if I had ultimate power, I think it's going back to grassroots movements. I mean, I'll be honest, the whole idea of a central government really makes me feel a bit queasy. I used to be of the mind, because I used to be a terrible leftist, you know. I used to be of the mind, you know, you needed free universal healthcare, we all needed to be taken care of, and all the rest of it. And actually, what I think we need now is we need to do away with centralised governments, and we need to have community-based kind of circles, really. We need circles of elders, and it's like the wisdom keepers, you know, and going back to those kind of roots. And I think it's, if I was the ruler of the world and it was like the perfect world, what we really could do with is having construction in a way that's kind of symbiotic with the earth, because I think the issue that we've got is we've become so detached from nature and the natural rhythms and cycles that go along with the earth, that this is why we're all becoming really sick and poorly. We're not moving in the natural rhythms, and even living in like big built houses, you know, the structure of them isn't in resonance with our natural blueprint. You know, it's all these like plastics and materials, and the water isn't. I mean, we've talked about water for ages, and we can go on forever about that. But obviously, when you drink tap water, just forget the chemicals and whatever else is in that. It's not in a natural. It doesn't flow naturally. So the frequency and the structure of the water isn't how it should be. If you went to a natural stream that wasn't polluted and you drank that water, that would literally enrich your body, because it is structured the way that nature intended, you know, and it feeds you on an energetic level. And these are the things that we need to come back into alignment with. I think it starts with health. I think everything starts with health, you know, and then you work up from that, because we're just so sick. We're sick in our minds, we're sick in our bodies. We're put in these 9-to-5 jobs that just don't feed us. I mean, even to technology, I think you can actually utilize technology in a way that is done in a more organic and natural way to help feed and cultivate this kind of society where I mean, if you took money out of the equation, and I don't want to sound like a raging communist there, because obviously you need to still exchange things, because it's all about exchange, it's energy exchange. But if you did things in a different way, if it was all kind of community based and everybody had their own kind of thing that they would contribute, and people were pushed to explore, you know, what it was that filled them up and that could also be of service to other people, I think we would start to flourish, because that's how we really feed ourselves, isn't it? The things that we do, it's the actions that we take, it's the people that we're with. And I think that's kind of what we need to get back to.
Beautiful, beautiful, perfectly put. Completely agree, 100%. And I'll just throw it right to Kirsten here, because it's been a while since we heard from you. What do you think our walk into the future looks like, and the first steps to take?
You know, I would nominate Sam as the dictator of the world, first of all. But I agree. I think it's getting back to the natural cycles, and it's getting back to our own passions. What makes you want to get up in the morning and really live your life and be involved in your life? Because so many people are not even involved in their lives anymore, you know, and you can't blame them, because look at what has been created, this sort of this place where the soul doesn't actually get to come through, because we've got to you know, like the 9 to 5, that's just absurd. It's not good for anyone, and it's deliberately not good for anyone. And we really need to come back and because we live in the inverse world right now, and so, you know, turn a lot of this stuff upside down. And I do think it's getting back to the grassroots. It's getting back to your local community. What can we do as a local community to make our lives better? And I think, you know, and like Sam said, the whole idea of a centralized government that rules over everyone is just absurd. We need sovereign beings who are living their own lives and finding the things that work for everyone. Because if it doesn't really feed your soul, then why have it? And, you know, oh, we need laws, we need this, we need that. I think Sam's right. We need elders who have some experience and understanding, and we need to be able to really learn to function as a community again, because our communities have just been completely destroyed in many cases. And it's making those connections. And so I think we need to come back together as people. We need to make those connections. We need to find the center, because just like going back to the heart, it's the center, it's the bridge. The center is the bridge. And we've got all these polarities, you know, all these people living their extreme polarities. And rather than, and, you know, it's like truth. What's truth? You know, if we go back to the Hermetic principle of polarity, it's like, okay, well, we've got, say, a line where we've got hot over here and cold over here. What's the truth of temperature? It's the center, and you can apply that to anything. The full truth is at the center. There may be some truths at the extremes, but when you actually get back to the truth, it's at the center. The full truth is at the center. And so I think we really need to start coming back to that. And, you know, just to also, you know, kick off your shoes and put your feet on the grass, because that's the first way to reconnect with nature, because we're even separated by nature from our rubber soles on our shoes. And we have been so deliberately separated from that. And we do need to get back into the rhythms of the earth, back into the rhythms of our own bodies. And as Sam said, healing is where it's at. Healing ourselves, helping others heal, and healing our earth. And that's not, you know, about regulating cow farts. It's about reconnecting with nature and finding the, you know, what actually does make the earth, because we're part of the earth. We're not separate from the earth, and we're not killing the earth, at least not deliberately. And we need to really recognize that the earth is a being herself, and we are part of her. And so a solution that doesn't work for the people is also not going to work for the earth. We need to really reconnect and find out, you know, where do we meet? Find the center again.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Perfect. I completely agree. And that's just like, it's like you two have the same plan. You're just talking about it from different aspects. And like, you would be great co-dictators. Yeah. So next, let's go to David, and let's get the masculine perspective of what we would do to implement right now going into the next few years to actually tangibly bring forth that new world we all want, we all long for. Like, if you were president or king of the world, how would it be done?
Well, okay. So if I were king of the world, so the biggest problem, can't even really say that, because what is the biggest problem? There's so many. But there's a really big problem, okay? And I don't know what we do about it. And that problem is, I don't know. It seems like well over 90%, probably close to 99% of humanity, like, they really need someone to, like, come in and show them what to do, tell them what to do, save them, whatever it is, whether it's, Trump or the other side or some religious figure. I mean, they're all waiting for somebody to save them. And, the way that I came into my power is I'm not waiting for somebody to save me. I looked around at what was going on in the world. I was like, I don't see anybody doing anything about it at all. So I'm going to do something about it, whatever I can do. And God honored me for that. And, that's not a brag. That's like, I can do this. So can anyone else, if they put their heart and mind and soul into it. And we need a lot more of that. So if I was king of the world, I would probably implement a system of government where everyone is a king or a queen if they choose to be, of their own life, and see where we go from there. Obviously there's certain rules. If everyone is a king or a queen, then you better treat them like royalty when they're in your presence. And
Yep.
And yeah, so that's my that's my system of government.
It's legitimate.
Mm-hmm. And welcome Nick Verdis, who everybody should know on Twitter. Thank you. I hope, were you there long? Because I just noticed a red flag in the recording. That's how I saw it.
Not long. I have a little girl that wanted a rainbow birthday cake, and 6 layers was a lot.
It looks beautiful from the pictures we saw. So we wanted to dedicate this whole episode to you, but we've been going for an hour and a half. So I want to give you the due time of having. We'll make another episode for you because you have such a fascinating story. But we'll let you briefly introduce yourself, and then now you also have to, going in cold, tell us what you would do if you were king of the world to save the world.
Well, by the way, it's nice to finally get a chance to see you guys actually here instead of just over text. It's always a pleasure. Your voice certainly lives up to your name, Lion. What would I do if I was king of the world? Well, first off, it's not a job I would want. I don't think I have the wisdom to actually enact that. But what I would want to see is for people to understand a few things that come from a slightly different perspective. Hi, Mrs. Lyon. The keys are really accountability, responsibility, and consent. If people don't interact with the world around them, keeping those in mind, then really everything else is irrelevant. It doesn't, as we see today, it doesn't matter what laws you make or what you threaten people with or what you choose to do. If they don't have a core value of responsibility, accountability, and consent of the people you interact with, it's irrelevant. They just look for loopholes and ways around things. So I think it's kind of a catch-22. If you have that, if you can get people to hold those values, laws are effective. If they hold those values, laws are irrelevant. So the term king is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if you guys have ever read Hans Hermann Hoppe, his book Democracy, The God That Failed. It is fascinating. It was written, I think, early 2000s, and it lays out the problems with the various forms of government. He essentially skips socialism and communism because they're just a corruption chain. Talks a lot about, obviously, democracy, how that's become this idolized concept that everyone has a voice. And he said in reality, it results in a system with no responsibility, no accountability, and all of the figureheads are cycled out fast enough that resentment never builds up. So you never have a situation of pitchforks and torches to the castle to take care of the corrupt king, because by the time the rage has built up to that point, oh, we've got a new leader. And Hoppe actually, he advances two concepts of being a superior form of government. One is a moral monarchy, where the king runs the country as a business and is responsible for its success or failure. He puts the people's labor into production, takes as little as possible because government's parasitic, and then if anything goes wrong, he takes responsibility and accountability for the actions that he inflicted on the population. The other one Hoppe preferred was nation states. You know, you have a freedom of travel as an absolute. You have an absolute freedom of association. If you don't like where you live, leave. And basically, like county-sized governments, everyone independent, working together. If you don't like the area, you can leave. So you can have a place like Utah, which is religious of this branch. If people don't like it, they don't have to live there. So somewhere between those two, but whatever we're doing is clearly not working too well these days.
That was perfect, the second one. And it's funny because no one knows this. Nick and I got acquainted by discussing something about the government. And then he was like, oh, I want to discuss this with you. I'm like, actually, I have a podcast. Why don't you come on? And then we did. And we talked about it. So if you want to hear deeper ideas between the two of us of what the government should look like, watch that episode. Because what you said right there, I don't even know if I touched on that day, but I've seen that too, where open borders in every area, unique to whatever it is. If one area wants to be cannibals, one area can be cannibals. Just don't live there, because you can freely leave. You can go wherever you want and pick what's best for you. And then that's just how we grow. And everybody had such beautiful ideas. But I want to pass it over to Samantha and actually allow Samantha, because I know she wanted to ask some questions and get to know Nick. She's interested in your story, as we've all heard it in the chat. So Samantha, go ahead, take over hosting and do your thing.
Oh my gosh, you just jumped me in it there. Hi Nick, it's lovely to see you. You can't really see me because I'm in the car and I've not got very good reception. I've had to drive to get on here. So yeah, I think it was just more to do with like how your awakening went. I know you've mentioned before, I mean, obviously if you're comfortable discussing that, but just before we do go on, I thought the points that you made there were excellent about the government thing. But I mean, the issue that I had is, if it's to do with the kind of states, really. If we're all sovereign, we kind of need to be aligned with universal law. And the issue that we always come back to is the level of consciousness of people that are here. And I know Stephen goes on about the shopping trolley scenario, doesn't he? And it really is true. You know, to have an actual society that functions properly, everybody needs to be sovereign. And there has to be a certain level of consciousness. And this is the issue that we're in at the moment, because we kept in a lower level of consciousness, aren't we? Yeah. And as we're kind of going on this ascension journey, the whole point of it is through learning, and also I guess through pain in some instances, because you learn the greatest lessons through discomfort, don't we, sometimes? How I think the question is not if we were sovereign being, not if we were kings, how do we get every person to be a responsible sovereign being? How do we encourage people to make that leap in consciousness? And should we even do that? You know, that's the question, really.
Well, I doubt that the should is really much of a question. Would you rather have people aware of themselves, other people, their place in the world, or not? I mean, we've already seen not. That's the world we live in now. Not doing too well. So the question is less should we and rather at what rate. It's the question of ripping off the Band-Aid. How is it better to go slowly and let people acclimate, or just say good luck?
I mean, that's a bit of a gung-ho thing, isn't it? I think
I actually got so
sorry, again.
I have some contact with a Syrian that I channel, not the country, the star.
Mhm.
She's an interesting one because she kind of puts up with my sense of humor and the occasional rant. And I was driving to work and having that kind of meditative overlay where you're not totally grounded in reality, you're kind of in and out.
Yeah.
And I was ranting to her about what's it going to take? Why can't the Band-Aid just be ripped off? Why can't the entire world learn what we've learned here? Because it would make life so much simpler. And she gave me the mental visual image of everything I went through in the year and a half of my boot camp awakening, as it were, 2020 to halfway through 2021. And she said, if you had to experience that over the course of a month, do you think you'd survive?
Yeah.
And I say, I couldn't give an honest answer of yes. She said, would you like to lose 20% of the population to suicide over the course of a month? It's like, oh.
And is
No.
that to do with kind of like higher knowledge, though, like accessing higher knowledge that you've not been told, or is it to do with like the expanding of our consciousness? I mean, what do you think is going to tip people over the edge? What do you think they could actually accept?
Our consciousness doesn't just expand up, it expands down too. The
Mhm.
reason my awakening was so hell was that I had to have my state of consciousness dropped to a level that I could perceive past traumas in order to resolve them.
Yeah.
And that got pretty dark. So applying that to however many people there are worldwide, I think
So
that's the reason why there are timeline splits, to allow people to go back and do redos. But at some point, it's got to come to a head. I fear if it goes too fast that a lot of people would just choose to out themselves, frankly.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's what we're seeing now, Nick. You know, the whole thing with COVID.
Yeah.
That was the big kind of singularity, I think. And that's where we kind of all came together, and it put us in that position where we had to choose to either be sovereign or not. And it was I think it instigated a lot of real dark nights of the soul for a lot of people, because it made them, like you said, that was such a great thing what you said about it doesn't just expand up, it expands down, because that's the thing with duality. It's a spectrum, isn't it? And you've got to see all of it. It's the same when you have like a heart activation. I'm not sure if that's what you kind of went through as well. When you have a heart activation and you expand your heart, yes, you feel more love and bliss, but you also feel all the pain and the despair and everything else. You have to feel it all, because it's a spectrum, it's a whole, isn't it?
It really is. And I know I've driven Diana nuts a little bit with this, but I don't understand a lot of, I didn't come about this from the same direction. So a lot of the things you guys will say, like heart activation or talking about the monadic nature, I came about it more from an intuitive sense, I suppose, rather than a sense of learning and
You know what though?
terms.
You're more of a head wizard.
Yeah, it's actually doing things. And it's what we said earlier, how bringing our things together creates language and understanding. Because I want to tell you what you said there about how they had to drop you into darkness so that you could retrieve past traumas. Just scientifically, frequency explained why we have dark nights of the soul, why we go into these darker spaces. You just put that together for me because I knew we had to do it. But everything comes down to frequency. And I always want to know why. And that's why we get dropped to the lower so we can feel the past trauma and actually bring back that soul shard we were all talking about earlier as well. That's deep. That I hope everyone felt that as well. Like the darkness, lowering your frequency so you can truly pull back the darkness you left in the past to heal it. And sorry, Sam, keep going.
Sure, that's great. No, you're absolutely right. And I mean, obviously, I don't want to just keep talking over everybody, and I wonder what everybody else's kind of thoughts on that are. I mean, Kirsten, what do you think?
I agree. And I really think, I mean, and I loved Nick's point about, because I've gotten the same thing channeling. Like I've said, why isn't everybody waking up? Why can't everybody wake up? And it's like, well, you know, because you're going to have something. And what my guide said to me was there will be hospitals burned and people killed in the streets and people committing suicide. And it's not pretty. We don't want to rip the Band-Aid off because it's not going to be helpful. And I think, you know, it's the same thing. We do have to drop into that darkness. And it really ties back to that sense of, like we've been talking about with Easter, that rebirth, because you have to go through the darkness to have that rebirth. And I think I don't understand the scientific frequency as much, but I do know that it's when you dive into that darkness and release it and let it be and accept it is when you start going up higher and higher. And I think it's all about recognizing all of these polarities and bringing them back to center. So I can live with the darkness and I can be in the light. And in order to live with the darkness, you have to really see it. And if you don't see it, you may not want to see it all at once. I mean, you know, and I had the luxury of having a very long awakening process. And so I came to it very gradually. And I've, you know, when people start to just look at it and see all the stuff that has been hidden in our world, which is just frankly almost everything, and seeing how deep the rabbit hole goes, most people cannot handle this. In fact, I've even had people say to me, I don't want to live in a world if it has this or that in it. I don't want to live in that world. And so anyway, yes, very much.
I envy you the longer awakening process instead of a year and a half of here, have fun.
Yeah. Well, it's still been here, have fun, but I've at least had a little bit more time to acclimate, or a lot more time to acclimate. So yeah, it is really better to do it that way. I think for most people, of course, you know, we all in this community, all the people I know, including myself, tend to just jump into the abyss. Like, okay, let's go. Woo, here we go. And it's like, oh, damn, why did I do that? That was insane.
I mean, it had been staring at me for a while. What are you going to do, you know? Yeah.
That's interesting.
I love that about all of us. You know, I love that because we're all just like so gung and ho. We're just like, yeah, we're just going to do it. Bugger it. Woo! And then, yeah, consequences be damned. Yeah. David, what do you think on that?
Well, first of all, I agree with what Nick and his Syrian friend had to say about it. I mean, because I've received similar messages about, you know, why we can't just do it. And in fact, you know, I was in like an experiment with the Arcturians. I may have spoken about this before here, but it's like, you know, there's only been a couple times that I've been able to like remember being like on their ship or something, but this is one of those times. and it was like they had attached. Well, first of all, let me explain how this works when you go like on an Arcturian ship. It's not, they're in another dimension, so it's not like your physical body. It's more like your astral body, or like another version of you that exists outside of time and space. Like, this is hard to wrap your head around, but that's how it works. Okay, so it's like they had me there, and they attached me to like a computer, and or something like that. And in this computer, they create like a virtual version of Earth. And you're in there, and I was in there, and there were people, and I, as like a representative of the light, was like trying to like reach them, to help them to awaken. And it was like they kept getting more and more angry, and like everything that we tried just made it worse. And we determined that in many people's, if you want to call it Mockingbird, MK Ultra programming that almost everyone has now, there's almost like a deeply seated, call it a rootkit, if you will, in their consciousness that is like programmed to be repulsed by a light being. So literally, like, we can't just go to them and be like, "Hi, I'm from the stars," because they'll see that as the enemy. So, like, what can we do to wake everyone up? Not much directly, but that honestly is the way that we fight, because we don't, just like the Jedi, we don't attack, we defend, we stand guard. So what can we do to help people awaken? Well, there's this thing called the 100th monkey effect, right? Because we don't need 8 billion people to awaken. We actually need only a very small few, and percentage wise. And I mean, honestly, we're pretty much there right now. It's more about trying to make the transition process as painless as possible for everyone is really what it's about. And so what we can do is stuff like we're doing now. Talk about our experiences, hold space for people that are just starting to go through this. Share our experiences. I'm being led to like write a book or something to share my experiences, things like that, and of course, embodying what we've learned. We've all been through something, and we've been taught by divine beings and angels like how to embody a Christed person on earth. And so now we have to live it and show people, hey, your life really is better when you practice these things. And I've already done it. I mean, I told the story in the beginning about how my wife's family tried to destroy our marriage, and they character assaulted me. They came up with a lot of like BS stories about me, and like it was bad. And oh, well, yeah. Well, I better not. They are lucky that they live in another state, because I better not see any of them ever again. but sorry, I get a little.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. But what was I saying before I brought that up?
That we need to embody that.
Yes.
Spirit.
Yes. So in that situation, like, I had to get with my Christ self and like really embody it, and thank God, Saint Germain and Samael and all of my spirit guides were there for me to show me exactly what I needed and exactly what I needed to do. And even my wife's higher self came to me in like an astral vision. And
oh, wow.
And she said to me, he always waits for the perfect moment to strike. And which was insane. And now I know what she was talking about, because everything in my life since that has worked for my better. Like everything is coming together. So I know that we're on the best timeline because I can see it coming like a meteor. Because for me, it's already pretty much here. The only thing I don't have at the moment is like $1 million. But honestly, even if that never happens, like if this is as good as my life ever gets, it's pretty good. So, I'll take it over what it was before. Yeah, I definitely feel like we are on the prime timeline, and we're getting closer to where we need to be every day.
Yeah, I tend to agree. 2020 really felt like this metaphysical sorting hat of the universe that I like. I don't know if I've touched on this before. I was married at the time and lived in North Carolina. Was making like 115, 125,000 a year. Ended up you get threatened to get stabbed by your wife. It's pretty much over. I mean, just saying. And I had a bunch of choices come up because, I knew the marriage was over, but the question is always, what do you do? I've got 4 little kids on this side. I've got the best job I've ever had on this side. Where do I go? What do I do with this? The Rona BS is all going on. Everything was just thrown up in the air. And then I'm like, okay, what's priority? I said, well, I've got to keep my commitment. I brought these kids in the world. I can't leave them without answers. I can't leave them without a dad. So first priority, what does that mean I have to do? Well, I have to be around them. So we're dropping the 120K a year job, moving back to, well, wherever she ends up moving, which was around her family, because believe me, I'm right there with you, Lion.
Yeah.
Hers is not that far off.
Yeah.
It was amazing to find out what I did. I mean, it really was. So I've kind of went through and went, okay, I didn't realize it at the time, but I made the moral choices versus the practical choices. I chose, well, I need to be there to teach my kids. I need to be there for them. That takes a priority. So everything else falls from that. And I didn't even realize that I was making those choices until years later, that I was picking that higher timeline, that I was questioning, that I was soul searching. And it was only actually after all of those things had happened that I wasn't even conscious of that it all kicked in. And the actions took place from decisions I didn't even realize I had made. And I think that 2020 did that for a lot of people. The ones who questioned, who said, it's a pandemic and people are dying like flies, but I don't see any. Okay, that one dude with asthma that I know died, but and if you get any sort of pulmonary infection as an asthmatic, okay, whatever. People questioned without realizing they were questioning. They thought outside the box without realizing that they did. And I think it's a longer term scale of my very short term boot camp where, like you said, that innate rejection of outside the box ideas, that program got broken, even in a small way. And I think what we're seeing now is the outcome of the people who chose to break that and question. And now all those little cracks are forming into fissures and shattering this illusion, but it's happening on a slow enough timeline they don't even realize they see it. Like I see a lot of people, because I'm sure if you've been onto my Twitter page, you know that I post a lot of random stuff and associate with a lot of very off the wall random people. But it's been interesting to see just how many folks have had changes of perspective, changes of heart over the last 4 or 5 years. Whether it's what we'd consider important or not, that programming is unraveling slowly, but it is. So I don't know if I'm just being the natural permanent optimist that I am or what have you, but
No, you're spot on. And that's that actually, because when Kirsten was talking, she's talking about how hers took a long time because it happened a long time ago. Yours is just starting to happen since COVID, and look how fast it's happening. It's all the choices, and it starts with people like Kirsten who did the work first. She got lots and lots of time, and then it comes, and we all throughout the ages. Mine started in 2012, and I even was given extra time. My big blow up happened in 2016, was my dark, huge exploding thing, but there was years surrounding it. But I had those years, and there was things, and then COVID happened, and then there was all of us, like I'm sure Kirsten was the same, where we just, like, there was no thinking about it. We knew vaccines were already bad, and we knew obviously they were lying, because we were already well aware the government's a liar. And then so we just go through it, and then it keeps happening though. And like, so when you guys said that, it was like, it made me realize in a few years, people might all of a sudden just and wake up in a day, because of how, like, look at the timelines, how it's speeding up, how everyone's like happening faster. And then even Stephen woke up when he was young, and he was waking up for a huge period of time. We've heard his story. He had even longer. And then and that's just how we're going. So you're right on point there with that, Nick. Absolutely.
Then some of us get lucky enough, like Lion, to get the extra accelerated curriculum.
Yeah. Well, lucky, I guess. I did not always feel lucky. It's been, okay, I got to tell this story. So, I have this connection to the archangel Samael, and there's a lot of different opinions out there about this angel for a lot of reasons. He's the prosecutor, he's the judge, and nobody likes to be judged by God. So yeah, in a lot of stories, he's the bad guy. But I saw this YouTube video from a person who also works with Samael, and he was just kind of talking about it. And one of the things he said was, he's like, I hope you're in good shape, because what he's going to put you through, you might not survive. and I was like, oh, I'm sure he's just talking about my near-death experience that I already had. I already came through that. I'm good. And then no, that was right before, like, the hardest year and a half of my life ever. Oof. But hey, here I am, much better and stronger for it, and I shed a lot of layers that were holding me down. So it did all work for my highest good, without a doubt. But yeah, it was hard.
Yeah, whether it felt like it or not.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I would love to just sit down and get a good chunk of your story, because it's fascinating. I've read a lot from Kirsten. You were actually one of the first people that I ran across on Twitter, believe it or not, back in the day. Is just out of nowhere, I show up with these people show up on my timeline. I'm like, what is this? What even are they talking about? And wow, that made sense. And so it's been really nice to have that long timeline and see people that have had stuff sorted out and settled and had the time to process it, I guess is better. Words are hard. Had that time to process it, because I really didn't have that option, and yet I still see all of these stories. Honestly, I would love to put some of these stories as a fictional world, because they're incredible. Experiencing time and space.
We should collaborate. I have a plan for that.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I can write.
Okay, well, when I'm done with you, you'll probably be able to make videos too. Because like, seriously, anyone that is like on the level of intelligence, like, clearly, like, everyone in this conversation could do what I do. So yeah, and I'm like, I've hit like an amazing stride, like as far as my ability to create AI videos that are like compelling, and like not just garbage stuff, but like something that you can actually put in front of people and like show them, like, wow, you know, yeah, we can do that. And
I've
yeah,
been
so
thinking about that as well. I've got OBS, Audacity, and DaVinci already downloaded. I've been playing with those.
I've been using Pica, and it's
really?
it's really cutting edge.
Yeah, I'm kind of old school, I guess. I like recording live audio and trying to find stuff, put it together. But the problem
I'm sorry to cut in, guys. I'm going to have to go. I tried to wait for a nice little break, but yeah, it's getting dark and I need to go back. I had to drive out really far to get reception. But it's lovely to talk with you, Nick. Your story is really fascinating and I'd love to do it further. We'd love to have you on our podcast if you would like to come on it.
For sure. Let me know. I will definitely make the time.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for coming, Sam. I'll let you sign off though, and then we'll all say goodbye.
All right, guys. Well, much love to you all. Thank you ever so much. Thank you to everybody that's watched. And don't forget to check out the Metaphysical Fact. We've got our first episode out. It came out yesterday. We're officially podcasters. And yeah, catch you on the flip side, guys.
Awesome.
Yay!
I'll be listening to it.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming, Nick. We're so glad you did show up. But the three of us, because Sam even go later too. But David, Kirsten, and I have been going for 2 hours, over 2 hours now. It's been great though. I actually still have energy. I just my kids are destroying my house.
I got you. Mine are playing Minecraft and wondering when's Dad's actually going to finish frosting the cake.
That's so far. I think my son's playing Minecraft right now too. The other one. Well, thank you so much for being here, and everyone.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and thank you for David and Kirsten sticking around. More. Yeah, I want to make this work, and if we got to do a Friday sometimes, like we're getting a group that like we can. It doesn't always have to be the weekend because I'm open all the time, and I don't. Kirsten, I think you are too, right? You're more open, so like we can do weekday stuff too. You don't just need to wait for a weekend.
Friday is really my only day off. Yeah.
Same. I work Monday through Thursday, 10 hours. So Fridays are off for me.
Yeah.
You know, Friday midday and afternoon usually work pretty darn well. So.
Okay. Yeah, we could do some Friday episodes then, and you know, the more the merrier, and then everybody gets a chance to be here. This is his third one. Okay, so well, thank you everybody. Thank you, audience, especially the audience that jumped from the one video to the next. We really appreciate you standing with us. That was a technical difficulty because Nick came into this one no problem. So we'll see, but hopefully it doesn't happen again. And thank you so much for being here, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Diana.
And happy Easter, everyone.